1, 2, 1, 2. Test, test.
And then just
And audio test. Here we go. No, you're not plugged in. Again. Check your headphones.
Hello, hello, and welcome to the Maleko and Flash podcast. I'm Maleko.
Hey, I'm Flash.
And today we are broadcasting live from the Bishop Museum in beautiful Honolulu, Hawaii, for the first ever installation of POW, the first decade from Hawaii to the world. And today we'll be talking to the founder of POW Hawaii, Jasper Wong. And we're going to be talking to the Bishop Museum, talking about how this incredible exhibit came to be. And it's going to be an exciting show, Flash, if you'll ever start paying attention.
I never pay attention to you, Maleko. I'm too taken by all this amazing.
You look like a
art.
tourist with your phone there. You're taking some Instagrams and everything.
This is the most Instagram-worthy place on the face of the earth right now.
It actually is, and of course, POW's always been an Instagram-friendly installation. It originated in Kaka'ako, painting the ugly warehouse walls of the streets and turning them into beautiful art. And today we get to look back at all the many years of art and artists that have been there. And we get to talk to the founder of POW, which was originally just POW Hawaii and now POW Worldwide. It's a nonprofit organization of contemporary artists. They're committed to education and community enrichment, a lot of beautiful art and appreciation throughout the communities. It's centered around murals, of course. It's centered around art, and it's a global network of artists. It organizes exhibitions, lecture series. It brings art back into schools, community spaces, live art installations, and so much more, not just in Hawaii, but around the world.
POW Worldwide.
POW Worldwide. And today, Bishop Museum is bringing you this fantastic new exhibit, one of a kind, never been done here before. It is POW here at the Bishop Museum. And ladies and gentlemen, please meet the founder, Jasper Wong. Thank you so much, Jasper.
And the crowd goes wild.
Thanks, Maleko. Thanks, Flash.
We're so happy to have you with us today. We've talked to you on the show before. We've talked about POW before, but this is truly an incredible thing to see. You can't explain it. I don't think video is really going to do this justice. How long have you been thinking about bringing POW to a museum for an exhibit like this?
For years, for many years, we've tried to push this exhibition, this concept to other museums, and it always got turned down.
They were turning it down.
Was the original concept for POW, did you want it to be in museums originally and you were forced to take it to the streets?
No. It was to the streets first. It was to try to get art back to the people, take it into the communities, and liven it up through public art.
And when we spoke last time, you talked about having POW in other countries and how you were bringing art to different communities around the world. In all of those communities, it was the same concept. It was mural art on the street, right?
Yes, correct.
Was there ever a gallery installation of any kind?
Yes. Actually, this isn't our first museum
That's what
exhibition.
I thought.
Yeah,
right?
this is probably number 5 or 6.
Okay.
But it's the first one in Hawaii.
Excellent. Where were the others?
In Long Beach, in Lancaster, California, mostly all in California.
Excellent. And today, of course, this exhibition is going on until September. It went up, and before, usually when an art gallery happens, a lot of the artists will create at home and bring and install and put in there and maybe do a few pieces in-house.
It's also basically just like 4 walls
Sure,
And
you know.
it's a whole different concept.
From what I saw in the making of video of this, the art was all created right here on the spot with sets that you build. Talk about that.
So this building is called the Castle Building, and is normally split between just two large empty spaces. And when we first came to the space, we felt that when we walked in, and if we didn't try to like build a path, a walking path around the space, like people will be able to absorb everything way too fast. We wanted people to explore, we wanted it to be more immersive, and also to speak on the history of graffiti, of the culture. And so we felt that this initial setup here with the buildings, with the bodega and the tattoo shop and the record store, that could speak to the history of graffiti, going back to like the 60s and 70s, where it all began. Where at that time, kids didn't feel that popular culture spoke to them, not the music, not the dance forms, not the art. And so they created graffiti, they created breakdancing and hip hop and rap. And that's where it all began. And then they can start there, and they can follow a path where it will kind of develop into, floor-to-ceiling murals. The stuff that we've been doing in Kaka'ako and around the world, as well as having a gallery exhibit in the back showcasing paintings from over like 150 artists.
That's incredible. You say, how many artists were involved with the creation of this particular exhibit?
I would say close to 200.
200 artists. That's an incredible amount. It's hard to picture that because it isn't that big of a space, but I mean, you're talking about little corners and little sections that were dedicated to artists.
Yeah. And so we wanted to sort of highlight artists on the murals, but also the paintings and larger paintings and installations. And so people could, get right up to it, explore, and also learn about the artist too. Because it is the Bishop Museum, this is Hawaii's Natural History Museum.
Of the 200 or so artists, how many would you say are local for this exhibit?
About half.
About half. See, I don't think local people realize how many incredibly talented local artists that there are. I think it's almost like you're a victim of your own success, and people think of powwow now, and they think of you flying in all these artists from all over the world, not realizing that possibly some of their favorite artists that they're looking at here are actually local artists.
Yeah, there's a lot of talent in Hawaii. Definitely a lot of talent in Hawaii.
What is it about Hawaii that fosters that sort of artistic creativity?
I think it's diversity. I think it's meeting and knowing different people from so many different cultures and so many different backgrounds and being exposed to all of that.
When you talk about educating folks about the history of graffiti, you mentioned that there were different types of graffiti, and there's actually a wall installation here somewhere.
right
yeah,
here.
there it is. That talks about the different kinds of graffiti. Can you help our viewers out and kind of go through some of the history of graffiti art and how some of this might be familiar to graffiti artists in certain cities and different here at Hawaii?
Yeah, for sure. So then one thing that people should know is that in order for us to tell the history of graffiti through this exhibition properly and accurately, we needed to bring on cultural advisors, and we have three. We have Crash and Mayor 139 and also OG Slick. And so we wanted to make sure that they could share the history and educate us because I didn't feel like I would be the right person to do that. And so they were brought aboard the project and also participated as artists of this exhibition too. And so a lot of the information that you see around this space, it's from them. And so there is a crate here that lists different types of graffiti, starting with tags, which is probably what you see the most around town, which is just, oftentimes single color, quickly written, their aliases, their names on walls. Throw-ups are usually, it's a fill, usually bubble letters, usually maybe two colors. And then blockbusters are sort of like larger stuff done with rollers, wild style. And then they also list like different styles and different methods. And also, pieces, like also known as masterpieces, productions, and all these sort of different types of graffiti. And we kind of try to list everything out here so that people can just have an idea and learn about where it came from. And also how it's evolved over time, because there's different artists here, such as Mayor 139, who started off doing graffiti and is now doing more sculptural work. But a lot of the work that he's doing now is informed by graffiti, by the work that he did as a kid.
It's pretty incredible when you look at the technique and the history of it, and how, as a kid growing up, you'd see somebody tag something, and like that was graffiti to me as a kid. It's just watching somebody tag their name on something, on the back of a school bus chair or something like that. That was graffiti. That was the extent of it.
The kind that you do super fast because you don't want to get caught. So
Right.
It's not even. It doesn't even look good. You just are trying to get your name out there.
Right. Or they got there's a style to it, and they work on their style, and then of course it evolves into the mural art that people see here at POW. When I blew it, before we even go any further, we need a word of the day.
Word of the day.
So, Jasper, the way this works, we don't have any drinks here today at the Bishop Museum, but the folks watching at home are invited to participate. So if you've got a cocktail, or if you can make one very quickly, what do you like to drink, Jasper? What's your go-to beverage of choice?
Oh man, I'm like the worst person to ask because I don't even like drink anymore.
You know what?
What?
What used to?
Yeah,
what
dude.
was your
How dare
go-to
you,
when
sir.
you did drink?
I have like kids and everything.
Doesn't that drive you to drink?
Is it
Oh,
a
man.
Capri Sun
I don't even,
pouch in the
go
freezer?
out.
Is that?
Yeah, I like sneak a Capri Sun when no one's looking. Yeah.
All right. Well,
I mean, when I used to drink, I used to make at home oftentimes. I mean, maybe I'm too boring, but I used to drink like Moscow mules and stuff.
Oh.
I like a Moscow Mule
Yeah.
every once in a while. All right.
Yeah.
So if you've got a Moscow Mule at home, Flash, do you know the ingredients of that are?
It would be Pau Maui vodka
Mm-hmm.
and a nice, fresh, good ginger beer. That's all you need. Super simple.
Yeah,
Excellent.
super simple.
So
Yeah.
make one of those real quick if you've got one at home, or open a beer or a Truly, whatever you've got. And we need a word of the day. So every time we hear the word, we're going to sneak it into conversation today. Everyone at home is going to cheer, make some noise, and have a sip of their drink. You get to pick the word.
Oh man, so much pressure. I feel like I should just be like your guys' name, then people would just get faded.
Yeah.
It'd be like the
probably
word is Maleko and Flash.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's it. That's the word. If you hear either of those names, that's what you've got to do. So try and sneak
people
that
are
into
done.
conversation, Jasper, as many times as you can today. That'll be fun.
I remember the last time we had him on the show, he didn't like picking the word of the day either. He got all, it's too much pressure. It's
A lot of
stressed
pressure.
out.
Yeah, I think I chose the word like ephemera or something.
You
Oh,
did. You
yeah.
did.
Or
That was awesome.
ephemeral
Good memory.
or something. Yeah.
Good memory.
Wow. I'm surprised you remembered that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'll never forget our last interview, our last podcast together.
It was memorable. It was memorable.
It was memorable.
We spent time with Flash.
Oh, okay. I see what you did there. And Maleko.
Oh, no. I kind of wish I had a beverage right now.
So, Jasper, speaking to local artists, and you talked about the style, diversity was a big part of it. I'm curious as to someone with a trained eye, someone like you, can you look at graffiti regardless of the artist and go, oh, that's like from the West Coast, or oh, that's from the East Coast, oh, that's from Hawaii, oh, that's from Japan? Is there just certain regions have just an overall certain style, or is it just too individualistic for that?
No, I mean, you're totally right about that. There is individual styles depending on where they're from, with the cities, the regions, 100%. And also developing people that also were inspired by calligraphy, even the writing forms from Nepal or Mesopotamia, and how they sort of evolved and utilized those influences to create their own writing style. I personally don't have that eye, to be honest. I mean, I can read them. And oftentimes the only way I know is because I can read it and I know who they are and I know where they're from. But, oftentimes, to be honest, I don't have that. Like, I'm sure like guys like Mayor and guys like Slick and Crash and all the guys that we work with have that eye, but I honestly wish I had that eye, but honestly, I don't have that eye. I can't tell where they're from, but I have books about it. And I read it and everything, but yeah.
What would you describe the overall style of the Hawaii type of graffiti?
I don't think you can, because then like all the different artists out here locally, like they all have very different styles. Like from the guys in UK to IC to back to like AF, all the guys that we've worked with over the years. Like even like in this show alone, like a lot of them are involved and have their work up, not only in this installation but also as paintings in the back gallery too. And like even their styles are like sort of vastly different. And also that just counts like typography, like lettering, but there's also like character artists, like guys that focus on like painting characters,
like the Angry Pandas.
Yes.
I
like
love the Angry
Lowe's,
Pandas.
Wobat.
or
Yeah.
like Slick, and I hear Greg Mike Persuade, etc. Like they're all like character artists.
And now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the gallery stuff in the back, some of that is for sale?
They're all for sale.
Excellent.
Yeah. But then we
Excellent.
can't directly sell them at the museum. So there's a separate website with the gallery that we work with out of LA called Thinkspace. So if you go to thinkspaceprojects.com, you can purchase some of the work back there. And you know what, to be honest, like a lot of the local artists that are back there, for some of them, it's their very first exhibition. Because we don't have that many galleries in Hawaii. We have barely any. Outside of, say, the more sort of like tourist-focused ones, right? Like that just sell like oceanscapes and paintings of whales.
So
So then if you're buying work from some of the artists here, like honestly, like it'll be their first work sold. It really helps to validate artists. It really helps to get their work out there.
And I would imagine a lot of these artists, I mean, obviously everyone has been, on lockdown. As an artist, if you're making money selling paintings, selling graffiti, it's been a little rough over the last year. So this is a really great way, again, to support, a local individual, a local artist, and support our local culture.
Absolutely.
For today's show, we are streaming, by the way, on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. If you've got a question, we've got people watching on all of our channels today. Just go ahead and drop it into the comments there. We'll ask Jasper for you. We'll get some questions answered. Also, if you got any comments or if you just want to talk about some of the shows that you've seen, if you've been to some of the powwows before. Before I go too far into the show, I do want to bring up Hulu. What an incredible partnership you had with Hulu just this past, I think it was last month, just the month before, where your artwork showed up every time they talked about Asian Pride awareness. And they had all of these Asian comedians and actors and musicians and artists, and then your art was the wallpaper for that. How did that come about?
So sick.
They reached out to me. Yeah, I mean, I was lucky in that respect where, they were familiar with my work, and they reached out to me to ask to help promote AAPI creators and storytellers, So not just Asian Americans, but also Pacific Islanders. And so the intent was to create a design, a wallpaper that kind of spoke to all these cultures, which when we looked at it, the grander scale, it's a lot. So we tried to narrow it down a little bit, but if you look through there, like there's even stuff from Hawaii, like I drew like shave ice and spam musubis, but as well as other sort of elements, and they animated some of them, and you can also get them as stickers on Instagram too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. That was really cool. And that ran for the whole month. It was like it ran every commercial. And this green wallpaper that you had created was there. Very, very cool.
And you can still access it now through Hulu. If you go to their hubs, they still have a AAPI hub with which highlights AAPI creators and storytellers and their films or TV shows.
So do you now get to watch Hulu without commercials? Is that like... that would be the ultimate pay,
Jasper,
right?
what's your password?
The thing is, I already had that subscription, so I was like, I didn't have that perk,
Well, we got a question here. Kili'i says the guy who tagged or who drew the cockroaches mural has to be local because no one has that kind of eye for cockroaches than the local. I think he's talking about one of the murals from Kaka'ako.
I mean, there's a mural here that has a bunch of like fake plastic cockroaches. The ones that you find, everywhere here, and then that mural is by Catch, who is from here and
Is local,
and who is considered to be a local legend.
Yeah.
But not just in Hawaii, but globally.
So let's speak to that for a second. Why don't you name drop some of
the local artists,
the big local legendary artists that a layman could go and look up and maybe get into a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, here in this exhibition, we have guys like OG Slick, who's from here. Obviously Catch, Defer, who lives here. We also have...
You pronounce it Defer? I've been pronouncing it Defer.
No, yeah, it's Defer. It's actually, the name was inspired by...
Just outed yourself as lame,
Yeah, I know. I'm not
from LL Cool J, I believe.
Yeah.
And the Kate Wadsworth, Shard Tuiasoa, guys like, even like Lauren Y.S., who lives between here and LA, Hula, who's been doing a lot of amazing work. Obviously, guys that we work with all the time and who I'm partnered with, like Kamea and Jeff Gress are in the show.
Kamea Hadar, he's been on the show before as well, the co-founder of Powwow with you. Suck it, Kamea, for not being here today.
He knew you were coming, so he's like, I'm not going to be there. By the way, the gallery is open today, so occasionally you will get groups of people that'll come in. You can kind of see people in the backgrounds of the shots here. You can kind of hear them. We have not blocked off anything, so they've got total access to all of the. I actually saw a younger girl earlier adjusting one of the tripods.
Yeah.
So
And that's sort of
That's fun.
That falls in line with this installation as a whole. Clearly, you've made it. You want people to. I mean, it's not like your typical precious art installation. You guys definitely by design have made it kid friendly.
Well, you've got this
people
walk-in
friendly like me.
bodega behind us
Yeah.
here that you actually go into and kind of explore, and kids love to touch, and they're touching everything. Everything's tactile.
Kids in Flash.
And Flash.
I like to touch all this stuff. But what is that? What was the thinking behind making it so tactile?
Well, we just wanted it to be more immersive. You know, we wanted the exhibition to sort of be something that people would remember seeing, and some of the work. Yeah, I mean, they're welcome to, when they're in the installation. I mean, obviously, like, don't touch the paintings in the back, but we wanted it for people to sort of like discover things, and also come back, because they're like, oh, they'll come here and then they'll see something posted or shared, and they're like, I didn't see that. Because there's a bunch of like hidden installations, like by artists like Slinkachu and Dan Witz that are around the space, like these tiny installations.
Yeah,
Really?
I've been here 3 times now, and every time I've been here, you see something different. I mean, and there's a lot going on in this installation. It's very busy. There's clearly you could get lost in just one little corner for quite a bit of time. But that's one of the the fun things about as many times as I've come is finding different things. Even today, setting up. I found different things because you're getting close up to like where's the power at and things like that, and you're like, oh, look at this little random thing over here.
Yeah.
It's very, very clever.
You talked about not touching the paintings in the back, and that reminded me of, when you go and you see one of these murals from POW, and you see, I drive by a few every day, and then one day I drove by and one was tagged, like by someone else, like someone had clearly written over it.
Them's fighting words.
And I saw that and I thought, okay, there has to be some sort of code where, if that happens to you, you quietly disappear. Like someone will be missing you tomorrow if they find your tag on their mural. I mean, what is the protocol when a graffiti artist has his mural tagged by someone else?
Asking for a friend.
Well, oftentimes when that happens, a lot of times it's personal.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Yeah, oftentimes it's personal, and usually like oh, someone's like I know them, and something happened, and so then there's some issues, and so oftentimes they're personal, especially like here locally where it's so small too.
Yeah,
there are oftentimes personal issues.
Is there a lot of like politics in the local graffiti art scene?
I think there's like a lot of politics with like every scene, right?
Yeah.
So definitely.
Especially in that podcast scene with that Maleko guy.
Yeah,
Maleko
your
Flash,
podcast, it's brutal.
The Maleko guy.
That guy.
The Maleko guy.
I forgot. Angela Ludwig says, please don't touch the kid going shishi on the wall mural. That's one of my favorites, too, by the way.
Oh,
That one
yeah,
is,
yeah.
I forget when that one is.
It's almost by
actually,
Slick.
it's right over,
Yeah.
right around the
Yeah.
corner. Yeah. Yeah, Slick has a very distinctive style. I really like his work a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you take the powwow show on the road, when you talk about it, so it's worldwide. Last time on the show, you talked about how when you take it into cities, you talk about cities that have a culture already of graffiti art. There are mural artists already in existence, but you take that and you apply it to like local educational programs, where either it's a collaboration with the local school, or you're helping the kids by bringing in and donating some of the supplies. Have you done any projects like that lately? And where are the latest installations of powwow outside of Hawaii?
Well, we're actually thinking about spending more time being focused on underserved communities here in Hawaii, because we've been doing that in other cities, and we figured it'd be good to do it here. I started teaching at Palama Settlement,
Right.
which is down the street from here, and it caters to a lot of kids that are in that particular area, which is also, there's a lot of low income and public housing in Kalihi in general. And so, if you're looking at what's going on with public schools in the DOE, oftentimes whenever there's budget cuts, they're cutting art and music.
Those
from
are the first
curriculum.
things to go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even like my daughter, with her school, they cut out art a few years ago. And so she's not getting art curriculum unless her teacher is bringing it in herself. And so we wanted to come back and fill in those gaps, So I teach a free art class right now. I do it twice a week there, mainly to high schoolers, with hopes of turning into a more fleshed out art school. That teaches everything from from what we do, from painting and drawing, illustration design, but also to photography, videography, to fashion design, animation, etc. That's the goal, to sort of like build something, and then that would be free for kids within those communities. Because one big thing that also has occurred is that there's a lot of access inequity, which we saw firsthand when all the students had to distance learn due to COVID. And we learned that, not every kid, not every family has a computer or even has access to internet.
Yeah.
And if the libraries are closed, then they really have zero access. So a lot of kids really fell behind because they couldn't distance learn. And some kids were lost altogether. And so community centers like Palama Settlement try to come in to sort of provide education, provide platform, provide learning. And they've been doing it for over 100 years. So we've been doing more work with them. And also had an amazing meeting with the Public Housing Authority to sort of do more murals in public housing. And we've been doing that kind of work in other cities, which, sometimes people tell us not to, but, I feel like
why would they tell you not to?
they tell us that it's like dangerous and that something will happen to the artists, etc. But, it's not true.
Is it because it's graffiti? Is that?
Well, because the thing is, like, we're painting murals and we're working with a lot of local artists. What actually happens when we've done it in other cities is that those communities are very inviting, and oftentimes they're wondering, like, why we even care to sort of give back to them.
Right.
What has happened, like in other cities, is one example is there was this mother of 2 daughters, and her oldest daughter was always afraid to tell people where she was from because she knew that she'd be judged because she lived in public housing. People don't live in public housing because they want to. They're there because they need to be there. And the youngest daughter, when we were doing the project out there, told someone where she was from, and the immediate reaction, the immediate question, they asked her, is that where all the painting is happening? And the mom told us that meant everything to her because it changed perception. It gave her pride into like where she was from. And so we want to do more of that work here locally in our own hometown, in our own backyard.
And Palama Settlement is actually, it's a great little location for something like that too. I understand a few years ago, actually it might have been even 10 years ago, when you were driving down the H1, they had a mural that they had set up along the freeway. And the kids had gone through and they'd painted, each got a little block, and they had done that. And, it's an opportunity for them to work on their art and have it be seen by people driving down the road without having to, put it on the side of a freeway.
Yeah, no, that's like a graffiti park. Those are popular in like Europe.
Graffiti park?
Yeah, so think skate park, but for graffiti, right? Because a lot of kids, if they want to get into graffiti or into spray paint art or into the art form, there's no safe place to do it, right? Like they're going at ditches, they're going to abandoned houses, and they're trying to find places to do it, where they won't get in trouble. But sometimes those places can be dangerous. There was a kid in Long Beach that was killed because he was doing graffiti in an abandoned home. The cops rolled up because there was a complaint, and they thought that the spray can was a gun.
Oh my God.
And they shot him.
Of course they did.
So, in those cases, we're like, if we create places that are safe for kids to practice and to do work, then those would be ideal. I actually really want to bring that back. The reason why it's gone now is because it was made from wood, from like plywood. It just doesn't last that long.
I was just gonna ask, like, what do you build a graffiti park out of?
I would say in this
look
case,
at this installation
CMU block wall. Just build it as CMU, right?
Oh,
That's
yeah,
probably the easiest, cheapest way to do it. Just lay some CMU block.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like behind you, I mean, this wasn't here. This little building, this fake street. Like on camera, it looks like you could be sitting in the middle of Chinatown, but I mean, it's a set, it's a prop. And when I saw the video, in fact, I don't know if I don't think I have the video of the making of the room, but you built this just for this, and it was clean when it went up. And so the graffiti artist had the fun of tagging a virtual storefront. That had to be like, I mean, that has to kick your buttons, right? I mean, that has to make you feel like
you get to do it in AC for once.
do it in AC.
There was no AC.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no.
They made you do it in the
because
heat?
that messes up the
the vents, the filtration system. So then these sets were actually designed and built by Rachel Philbeck and her team, which is she's like right there doing a tour right now.
Nice.
The unsung hero of the installation.
Yeah, we worked with her and her team to sort of, and then we helped to build all the other walls around the space with our POW team and our volunteers and all the graffiti artists that became a part of it. That's part of a lot of the artists that we've worked with over the years. But yeah, 100%. Like, coming here, and I mean, I think even more surprising that it's in the Bishop Museum of all museums.
Yeah.
How did that partnership come about?
Honestly, it's from their team, from people like Melanie Ide, Jaina Bullard, people like Brandon Bunang and Jen Onishi and Ken Yatomi and their team here that sort of saw that the work that we do is of value, and it speaks to not only the history of Hawaii but to its people, and that there should be a place where it's celebrated.
Do you? I mean, maybe just because I'm the Gen X generation, I feel like the time has long ago passed since graffiti artists were sort of looked down upon and not considered real artists. I feel like with Obey and all that over the years, and then certainly Banksy, I feel like do you guys still have that sort of stigma that you have to deal with?
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely, yeah. It definitely, I mean, yes, there are some artists that have made it, that have become like major artists, and many that we've also worked with, but there is still that stigma. Like, we still end up in cities where there's a lot of pushback and backlash.
I imagine you're
That's
making
crazy
inroads,
to me.
though. Like, you've got to be making steps. Like, for example, in Honolulu, it went from being something that probably was hard to sell to something where people are like, please put this on my building. I'd love to be a part of powwow.
Yeah, it just takes time, But there's still artists, there's still owners and people within Kakako that don't like us, or that sometimes see a mural and get offended by it, but then just through their own interpretation. Like, there's one mural that this lady hated, and then she hated me for it, and then she told me that it's because it was an advertisement for vaping.
Oh,
And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, it's not.
was it about vaping at all?
No, like, not at all. Like, I was like, what are you? And then there was one. She got super mad at me, and she's like, all Chinese people hate this mural. And I'm like, but I'm Chinese. So I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, how are you speaking for every Chinese person here? Like, what? Like, I'm Chinese. I'm like, I don't agree with you. So.
I love that, though.
Yeah.
People are so opinionated about everything, and they want everyone to think that the way they do. Working
Yeah.
at a news station, we get that a lot. We
Yeah.
get people that will call us up and just yell for 3 minutes and then hang up the phone, and we never hear from them again.
Yeah,
What
that happens to me a lot too.
What city
Sorry,
what city do you want to go in the most that you haven't been allowed to because the pushback has been so great to this point?
Oh man, we've been wanting to do some projects, and there's some projects that we've been working on that have been tough to get off the ground. I would say, cities like Singapore have been really hard to get off the ground, just because the culture there, it's like not as open to art, to art in the streets, to graffiti, to street art in general. I've been trying to do a project in Manila for a long time too. Oftentimes, some of those cities, it's more sort of like, what are going to be some of the logistical challenges? Will they, like when we did a project in Kathmandu, Nepal, like that was really tough to put together. And we knew that we would have to use whatever materials that exist there because it'd be hard to get stuff shipped in. I mean, and what we did there was we painted a school for homeless children. So that school would bring in kids through offering 2 hot meals a day. And once they got them in through the doors, they'd teach them. But it's not a very inspiring space. So we painted every surface of that thing, like exterior, interior, all the walls, ceilings, the cafeteria, everything. But we also got shoes donated too. None of the kids knew their shoe sizes. And so the teachers measured all their feet. And then we got shoes based on those measurements. And I got my friends over at Play in San Francisco to sort of donate all these children's shoes to them. What we didn't realize, and we were completely unaware of, is that most of those kids wanted bigger shoes because that might be the first and last time that they ever get shoes in their life.
Oh, wow.
And so that's something that we didn't even think about that. We're like, you know what, that makes sense.
It totally
but
makes sense,
we didn't
yeah.
think about that at that time. So we would love to do more projects there, but sometimes also but even more so, we had a hard time getting those shoes through customs.
Really?
Yeah, it was more like you have to pay for them to get through customs. There had to be some special sort of treatment, and then they still they still kept the box of shoes for themselves too.
Wow.
And those were those were shoes for the kids within their community.
Right. Interesting.
So there's stuff like that. We're always doing work but then to do more projects like that in cities that we can be more impactful and work can be more meaningful. But also sometimes it's like cities like here, let's do more work in public housing. Let's do more work at schools. Let's do more work at community centers.
That's funny. When you said the answer, I honestly thought you were going to pick like the cleanest cities in America. You know, like I think of downtown Denver, which is like the most pristine walls, red brick,
Anywhere
and white
in Canada.
white paint. Anywhere in Canada. You know, what do you want to paint the most? And you know, I just assume you'd pick the cleanest city ever.
Do you think for some of these cities that, like a Singapore, for example, that maybe you could sort of inception them, and instead of trying to go in the community first, actually try and do an installation indoors first, and then sort of showcase what you can do, and then say, hey, now imagine this.
Yeah, no, yeah, that definitely makes sense to sort of do work like that. I mean, we've been trying at least, so we'll see.
And I mean, a really big, obvious question we haven't asked yet is, I mean, you're flying artists literally all over the world. I can't imagine a flight to Nepal is very cheap.
No.
Let alone all the supplies that you need to do what you do. Where are you guys getting your funding from?
I mean, out here in Hawaii, we've been lucky that we've had some support. I mean, we've had a lot of support from, Hawaiian Airlines, from also like Monster Energy, spray paint companies like Montana, and also like even like City Mill and like different hotels like the Sherrington and the Alohalani and Modern past years. So we've been getting like a lot of great support locally. I mean, sometimes when we're in other cities, there is, to be honest, you know how we pay for the Nepal project? Kamea, Jeff Gress, and I, sometimes we're able to sort of pull some funding to pay ourselves for the work that we do. We just didn't pay ourselves.
Oh, wow.
We collected those funds and paid for that project.
That's kind of how we do it, right, Flash?
Yeah, pretty much.
By the way, that was the word of the day.
I got it. I got it.
Word of the home. All right, a couple more things here, just as we talk about this particular installation here at Powwow. It is open as part of the museum, so when you pay for your museum admission, you can come in here and check out the exhibits.
You can.
You can.
The museum itself is back open. They've got some social distancing rules in place. They've got, safety protocols as well, so it feels like a nice, safe, great environment to be in. As an exhibitor, as an artist, would this... Is this something you think you can bring back in a rotating schedule? Is this maybe a one and done? I mean, what would be next for you in terms of hierarchy? Like, now I've done this, I would like to do this next.
I think I need like a vacation or something. It's so hard for me to think that far ahead because I'm like, man, it was so hard. It was so hard to put this one together because.
How long was the build out?
The build out was about like 3 weeks, and then painting it was like a week, but then planning it was rough because we planned it during a pandemic.
So
A
explain.
lot of Zoom meetings.
Explain the week of the painting, because you had all the artists come in all at once and sort of set everyone free all at the same time. So what's sort of the logic behind that?
Well, the logic was there's going to be a lot of fumes, so we need mask and ventilation because we're all going to like lose our minds and burn our brain cells out and like get high on fumes all day long.
Sounds fun. I like it.
Indoor
I like
space.
it so far.
Lots of spray paint.
Weren't you here, Flash, around that?
Yeah.
That
I
explains
think I
a
came
lot.
a couple days before
okay.
the artist came in, but it was the finishing touches on the.
I mean, we were like pretty much like living here. Like I was living here, and then I was like, I found like a storage closet that I would hide out in. And so, but then all the artists. But then what's really great about having everyone here, outside of the fumes, is that we were all together. For a lot of the artists, we haven't seen anyone or each other for like over a year. And for some of them, the last time they saw everyone was here in Hawaii last year at our festival in Kaka'ako. And so, it's just special to sort of have everyone together. And also, like, oftentimes when we're doing festivals that are like neighborhood-wide, sometimes you don't see everyone because we're so spread apart. But then here, we're all together. And so we were having lunches and dinners together. We were hanging out together. And it was just a nice camaraderie, a nice energy to sort of have everyone together and painting and creating and sharing the experience.
If I'm tagging my piece in the installation next to your piece, is it a faux pas, or what's the etiquette on me giving you suggestions as I'm painting my mural next to yours, giving you my 2 cents? Like, no, make that yellow instead of blue or whatever.
Yeah.
Do you guys, is it sort of collaborative that way, or is everyone just stay in your lane?
What would you do if Flash told you how to paint your critters?
I'll be like, yeah. I accept Flash's criticism and constructive criticisms and advice on that.
And then he goes,
I know
really?
that Flash is an amazing artist.
A better man than I am.
Yeah.
And then he goes back and just paints it just the way he wanted to paint it all
That's
out.
But I
great.
think,
Boop
what's
your
great is that, like,
nose.
we actually talk to each other. and share and ask for advice.
Really?
really?
Because then
Okay.
we all like know that we're, all of us as artists and everyone is like, we've been doing work for a long time and everyone has different skill sets, but also different ideas. And you can see artists talking to each other and be like, I'm trying to do this. What are your thoughts? What do you think about doing this? And it's actually really amazing. Like people have a lot of respect for each other and they want advice from each other. Yeah.
And so when you're out on a street spread out across several city blocks, it's not quite as collaborative.
I would say less so because we're not so close to each other,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, and oftentimes it's hard to get everyone together. And it's like, oh, we're going to have a lunch. And like, oh, I'm still working. Oh, and so you drive around and like drop off sandwiches or meals to everyone
Right.
or dinner or stuff like that. So it's harder to get everyone together.
This pandemic really changed things in that aspect. It's like the social distancing would have been perfect actually for that, but at the same time, everyone has just been so starved to meet up with someone that I imagine you guys were really stoked to just hang out for a little while. and
Absolutely.
Even get high off paint fumes.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
Maleko
all we
and
did
Flash.
the whole time.
That's it. That's it.
That's why we're here doing this podcast in here, right? In
Yeah.
hopes of
Exactly.
That's it. I'm
some
wearing
fumes.
my least
Exactly.
effective mask.
Yeah.
Jasper, do you have any pieces here specifically that are yours that are for sale?
I never put myself in my projects or exhibitions or festivals. I think I just have there's just so much time taken to like
I was
manage.
gonna say it's not
plan.
because you're so humble. It's because I doubt that you would have time, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
I'm not humble at all. There's zero humility.
Okay, but so if we wanted to buy some of your artwork, where do we go? Your website?
Actually,
Yeah.
wait, that's not true. Your piece is out front, right? The Toyota.
Oh yeah.
That's sitting on the lawn. I mean, it's a collaboration with Toyota, but I mean, that's you,
That's
right?
true. Yeah, yeah. That is my work. Yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah. Yes, I am a Toyota ambassador. Buy Toyotas. Don't buy Hondas.
Plug them, give this feel. What is the tribe thing with Toyota? What is?
Yeah, so that's actually my idea. It was like sort of there's always initially it started off as like a Tacoma project.
Very
where, like,
Hawaii.
Yeah, and it was like not everyone that drives a Tacoma is the same. Like there's different types of people that drive trucks.
That's great because there's more Tacomas than walls in Hawaii. So as a mural artist, man, if you could tag all the Tacomas, you'd be legendary.
Yeah, and so with that project, it was like trying to highlight these just different people,
Yeah.
And then, but then it kind of like turned into a larger project where like let's just hide different people that drive Toyotas, and so this next one is that we're doing one with like Gucci's, Martin Gucci,
The
for
Gooch.
foodies,
Huge.
right?
So
And,
they have these badges. Are these
Yeah.
like you stick them on the car? Is that what the badge is?
Yeah, and then you can get them for free, and then later on they're sold. So then the last set of 3 disappeared in like minutes. So then we're releasing another 3, like
Nice.
slowly, yeah.
Wow.
So if you're driving behind a Tacoma out there and you see the badge on it, that is a tribe badge.
Yes.
And what are all the do you know all the tribes so far?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but then I think, the last one we had was like, one of them was Wahines, another one was adventurers. And then another one was sort of like, people that care for the environment. And then this one, the first one we released is like foodies with, where like I drew Martin Gooch as a character.
He is a character.
Yeah, so then he's like, so it's like a spam musubi character.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
With like, because in his Instagram is like musubi man, right?
Yeah.
And then has like a little chicken because he has like a bunch of chickens at his house. And a tiny musubi, which is like his daughter's.
Love it. We've had
But
him
then
on the
I wanted
show,
him
too.
to be like sort of short because he always like, for some reason, his shirt just like disappears.
Not only his shirt, he'll get drunk and get straight up naked.
Yeah.
It's disturbing.
So I was like, oh, can I just like
It's a
draw
signature
him?
move.
Like, but then like I had to put an apron on him. But then I was at one point drawing him.
That
So
is awesome.
who are some of your other sponsors? Name drop. Plug away.
I mean, what we said earlier, with, the Sherrington for this exhibit, Hawaiian Airlines, major sponsor of ours, Monster Energy, Montana Cans, who does our spray paint. We have a bunch of sponsors, like donors that as well. And we, in other cities, we have a lot of support from other sponsors as well. So, but then those are our major ones. And I think locally, guys like City Mill has always supported us too. So been lucky.
if I have a business and I want to sponsor you guys, or if I'm just a rich person and I want to throw some money your way and support Powwow, how would one go about that?
You just like Venmo me to me directly. And then you need my
What's your Venmo?
My
Well,
Venmo?
just give it
I
out.
think it's just my name.
Just
It may,
Venmo
it
my-
may, it may or may not go to powwow, but you know.
You know, that happened with
Like,
our
maybe, like,
guest
not
last
directly,
week.
you
Our
know,
guest
like
last week
indirectly.
was like that. He does a podcast and he just asks people for money. He does entire episodes where he says, I need money to do this show. And so I feel like if you just stood in front of each of your murals and you just were like, this costs money. Buy a can of spray
Yeah.
paint.
Or buy a Toyota. Either way.
Yeah.
Either
Buy
way, make
Toyotas.
it work.
For every Toyota, I get like a dime. So you buy a lot of Toyotas.
So, Jasper, what's your website and your Instagram, both for you personally and for Powwow?
Sure, yeah. So my website is jasperwong.net. Instagram is at Mr. Jasper Wong, MR, Jasper Wong. Powwow website is powwowworldwide.com, and Instagram is at Powwow Worldwide. Yeah.
Awesome. Jasper, thank you so much. And we can't wait to have you back and talk about whatever it is that you're doing next after this exhibit is over, which, by the way, runs through September 15th at Bishop
19th.
Museum. September 19th.
It's right there on the piece of paper in front of you, Flash.
Yeah,
right there on the
Flash.
notes. September 19th.
Yeah.
It's right at the Bishop Museum, of course. The rest of the exhibits are open. Make sure you bring your mask with you when you come. Masks are required. Social distancing is required. Of course, stay home if you're sick. But it is open to the public, and it's a fascinating experience. It's really immersive as you come in here. You can walk into the bodega. You can touch the groceries. You can walk around and you can see and smell the spray paint still in the air as you come through here. Definitely bring the whole family. Definitely bring groups of friends. Even organize a school function if
Come
you
more,
want to come
come
and
more
check
than
it out.
once. I'm telling you, you will see different stuff every time.
And I've heard that from a number of people.
Yeah.
Because there's all these little installations and stuff. So you definitely want to check that out. Jasper Wong, ladies and
Jasper
gentlemen, with us.
Wong!
Thanks. Thank you, Flash. Thanks, Maleko.
Part of Powwow, the first decade from Hawaii to the world. We invite you to come and check that out here at the Bishop Museum. And we do actually want to talk a little bit to the Bishop Museum and find out about how this exhibit came to be. Because, as Jasper said earlier, everyone said no until Bishop Museum. And so it'd be nice to find out a little bit about, who was the mastermind behind it? How did it all come together? And I understand we do have somebody here. We have the Vice President of Programs to help us out, promotions of programs. You want to join us on the bench here, Jasper? We'll swap out with you. And while that's happening, we're going to show you a video was incredible. That's just a little bit of an example of what you can expect here when you come to the Bishop Museum and check out the powwow exhibit. And to tell us a bit more about how this happened here, we've got the Acting Vice President of Public Programs, Dr. Brandon Bunag, to join us here to talk about it. First of all, Doctor, thanks so much for joining us on the show and for talking about this and for allowing powwow to come to the Bishop Museum. That is a triumph and a big win, I would say.
Oh, absolutely. It was great to have powwow here. And planned through a pandemic. You know, it was an amazing, working with Jasper is just an amazing opportunity. And, Bishop Museum's honored that they approached and asked, and why not,
Why not? What a great answer. Why not?
The Bishop Museum is traditionally, when I think of the Bishop Museum, I think about Hawaiian culture. I think about all of the many things that Hawaiians have created over the many years of these islands, and that's all visible in the in the buildings right adjacent to this one. And so when you install a graffiti art installation like powwow, how does that fit into the mission of the museum?
Yeah, great question. I think to understand our mission, the core of our mission is really inspiration, and we want to inspire people. Utilizing the natural and cultural history of the Pacific and especially around Hawaii. And powwow is not the first introduction of contemporary art to the museum. When Hawaiian Hall was reopened, I think back in 2009-ish, contemporary Hawaiian artists like Meleana Meyer, Carl Pau have interpreted different Hawaiian mo'olelo or histories of our kupuna, and they have contemporary art pieces in the very traditional Hawaiian Hall. Fast forward to 2021, and you look around this castle building, we have these amazing artists from all over the world coming together here on our campus, again, inspiring whether it's the next generation, whether it's the current generation, just inspiring visitors, local, kama'aina, around different various art pieces. And I think when you come and visit the exhibit here, you see this wide genre of themes that are going on, and inspiration and the way we inspire people is we tell stories, and telling stories is not just a telling; it's a showing. And art and contemporary art in the way that you see here is just another way of which we are choosing to tell our stories.
And I think the inclusion of modern art here in Hawaii is such a very forward-thinking step for a museum. I mean, I've been in this space for the dinosaur exhibit. I've been in this space for all the pop art and all the other exhibits that have come through. There's been aloha shirt designs and so many things. This particular space lends itself to that creative opportunity. It's almost like as museum curators, you're creating art yourselves by changing the space in ways that suit you.
I think the key to it is how do we make something that is historical, something that is traditional, relevant for today's people, for today's time. For our kids today that are, so savvy and fast on internet and on phones, everything is instantaneous. So how do we bridge traditional and modern, and to ensure that the traditional ideas and these traditional mo'olelo, these traditional concepts survive? As we continue to move fast forward into the future, and this space is meant to tell these stories. This space that we're in, Castle Building, is meant for these changing exhibitions. And I think all of us growing up in Hawaii, we know this space as the dinosaur space, or myself included.
Yeah.
Just to put a plug in there, the dinosaurs are coming back.
Yes.
In October. Just wanted to share that. But again, the dinosaurs themselves has a story to tell, and there is a connection to some of the work that our collections, our natural science collections, are doing through studies of fossils. So how do we understand society? How do we understand history through these collections? Same thing, powwow, the other exhibits that have gone to this space. It's all about making those bridges, telling these stories, again, all leading up to inspiring.
That's really fantastic. I love that the Bishop Museum jumped in when others said no, and brought this thing to life. I think other museums are kicking themselves right now, especially when they see how beautiful this turned out. The turnout has to have been fantastic. Was the museum open at all during the pandemic? Could you do anything here while people were social distancing?
If memory serves me right, when the state shut down, so did the museum. So that, I believe, was in March of last year. I want to say in June we started to reopen a little bit as things sort of tapered. So we opened for a few months, and then I believe in early fall, September, when there was an uptick in the state, we shut down again. And then, for a few weeks, and then we opened up October, and we've been open since.
Fantastic.
October.
That's great. Great opportunity to get the family out of the house. The Bishop Museum is one of the more inexpensive things you can do with your whole family. Bring the whole ohana out here and have a whole day of it. And because the exhibits like this one are so tactile and so interactive, kids get occupied for hours doing something. And they
flash.
They wander into to the building next door, and they're playing with volcanoes and underwater for hours.
Yes,
hours.
I love that volcano.
That's
thing.
what we do. We actually drop Flash off here on Tuesdays, so we don't have to babysit him. We just let him wander the grounds for a couple of hours, leave him with a bottle of water and a cracker.
How do you guys figure out? Obviously, the dinosaurs, that's a no-brainer. But when it comes to other exhibits, certainly maybe stuff you've never done before, like powwow. How do you guys sort of make the call on what you give the thumbs up to and what you pass on?
Yeah, great question. And it's really a collective of some of our curators, some of our directors, and of course our leadership here. We try to plan exhibits 2-3 years out. So the museum itself has obviously the collections, so we're coming up with ideas on how to present these collections via an exhibit. So it's a Bishop Museum original exhibit. We've done something that right before POW was installed, we had a Maiki no Himai surfing in Hawaiʻi exhibit. That was a Bishop Museum original, where we showcased some of our most oldest surfboards alongside some of the more contemporary surfboards, and the story of surfing and how it's really rooted and originated in Hawaii. We also look at other exhibits or traveling exhibits that aren't necessarily Bishop Museum originals. And the process through which we try to identify that is we try to think of what stories are they telling that we can connect back to what we're doing here at the museum, or some of the collections that we have here at the museum. So for example, and I'll stick another plug in, is we're bringing in from another museum a exhibition on Samoan tattooing. That's going to be installed in one of our, not this gallery, but installed in one of our other galleries come November of this year. Our own ethnology collection has some artifacts or some collections that relate directly to that exhibit. So it makes sense for us to bring these exhibits in, these traveling shows in, pair them alongside with some of our own collections to present a show for our visitors.
But how do you, because you said you're planning exhibits 2 to 3 years out, obviously in anything in life, what's cool and
like
hip
a pandemic,
what's trending right now? I mean, you need to decide what people are going to be interested in 2 or 3 years down the road.
Flash
from now.
wants to know what happened to the TikTok exhibit. How come it never happened? He was ready to bust.
So
a move.
how do you? I mean, not only stay on top of things, but stay ahead of things in that way.
Wow.
That's the secret sauce, Flash.
That's a tough question. Are you looking for a job?
I love it.
No, I mean, that's a valid question, right? It's hard for us to foresee the future, but I think one of the things is staying core to what we do and staying core to what we know helps inform us of how we want to proceed, moving forward, So again, exhibits that'll inspire, exhibits that'll attract our ohana, our kama'aina here. So one of the things that we walk into these meetings understanding at a very high level is we want to bring Bishop Museum to the world, but we also want to bring the world to Bishop Museum. So whatever falls under that category of bringing the world to Bishop Museum, which is really bringing the world to Hawaii, is fair game. Bringing dinosaurs is fair game. We've had a conversation on gridiron and bringing a football museum to Hawaii, just because of in recent history we've had a lot of Polynesian football players coming out of Hawaii that have been making it big, not only on the NC2A scene, but also on the NFL scene. So we've had those conversations.
Or maybe the biggest star in the world, The Rock.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no prescribed formula that we have to identify how we're going to bring in traveling shows. Really, we get in the room and we look at the calendar, go, hey, we have an opening here. Let's start looking at some available traveling shows, right? As much as possible, again, we want to stay core to what we do and core to what we do is we're a cultural history museum and we're a natural history museum that wants to be relevant in the 21st century and beyond. So how do we do those things? Well, we create our own. We partner like with Jasper and bring these things in. or we look for other exhibits that are happening, not just in the U.S. but across the world, and what's happening and bringing them here.
That's fantastic. And Doctor, before we wrap up today, maybe just name drop. Talk about who was involved from the museum and who collaborated to make this possible. We talked to Jasper earlier and all of his artists, but he did say that the museum was very influential in creating the space.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, first and foremost, you know, Melanie Ide, she's our CEO and president. I mean, without her guidance and without her direction, and ultimately without her thumbs up, we can't, you know, as her team, we can't go anywhere. Got to give props to our exhibits team. So if you walk into this space in any other exhibit, the bodega, the shops behind me don't exist. The pillar that's behind Flash doesn't exist, right? But our exhibits team built these things. They've designed it, and they've built it with help from POW, so that when Jasper brought his artists in, boom, they have the canvas through which to tell their story. So our exhibits team, I believe Rachel Felbeck was the lead designer on that.
Yeah.
Brad Evans is our director of exhibits. Our entire public programming team, you know, we have an arts night coming up, August 20th, free museum. Come check us out. You know, the exhibit will be open. It's free to our ohana out there. Our public programs team put these things together. Our partnerships team, they work with partners like Hawaiian Airlines to present these amazing exhibits for our community.
I've to that point, when are we going to see concerts come back on the lawn? And also, how are concerts tied into what the museum does?
Good, amazing question. You know, first question, when can you expect to see concerts on the lawn? Very soon. Very soon. We're in constant conversations on, you know, making sure we're in compliance, making sure we're following the rules. We don't want to get scoldings. We don't got anybody else to get scoldings. But they're coming back. You know, our sales and events team, our facilities team is working hard on a day-to-day basis. They're getting inquiries day-to-day from various concert promoters about utilizing our lawn. So there's nothing set in stone, but I can tell you very soon. Like within the next month or two.
Ooh,
for sure.
Fantastic.
Breaking news.
Breaking news. I love it. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. The Acting Vice President of Public Programs here at the Bishop Museum, Dr. Brandon K. Bunag. Thank you again for everybody who collaborated to bring powwow together. We want to especially thank Jasper Wong for talking with us today on the program. What an incredible show we had today, right?
Incredible show. Thank you so much to everybody. We're looking forward. I think we're going to take a few weeks off, though. This is our last show for a minute until the beginning of August.
Yeah, it's going to be a rough summer. We got other things that have kind of interrupted our summer here. So for those of you that are watching the show, tuning in right now, before you do anything else, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought of the show. You can watch the show on demand on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter. And you can listen on your favorite podcasting app, including iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Spotify.
All the usual
course,
stuff.
And Spotify. And, of course, if you want to hear more about the show, you can follow us at MalekoandFlash.com. We'll be back in August. Stay tuned for more. In the meantime, thanks for joining us here at Powwow at Bishop Museum.